Let's make it very clear. Jason Belmonte should not have won a TOC this year. His 2023 has been pretty mediocre. And then there was this tournament, which seemed to be nothing different. After the first round, he placed 58th place, almost in last place with a 195 average. If you know bowling, catching up from here to the cut is hard enough. Winning is almost impossible. But again, Belmonte proves why he's the best in the world. Not only does he make the cut with an incredible stretch of a 240 average in the final block, in match play he catches up from almost last place to 6th, with a record of 16 and 8. But now is the real test, the step ladder. To win the ladder, Belmonte would need to beat 6 of the greatest bowlers in the world. As a lower seed, he shouldn't be the favorite to win any of these matches. But let's say he has a 50% chance of winning a match. Winning 2 matches in a row has a 25% chance of happening, 3 matches, 12.5%. But 6 matches in a row, 1%. But somehow he now has the trophy. In this video, I want to break down in depth how he won these 6 matches and how we can learn from him to improve our games. For the first game, he faced Andrew Anderson, and I'm not going to talk about his game that much because he just kind of lost the pocket and missed bears, so he was pretty much out of it right away. So let's talk about Belmo's game. He's using a phase 2 here, which is a solid symmetric ball, and playing around the middle arrow, and I think that's a pretty good idea, using a benchmark ball to control the lane. For the left lane, he pretty much didn't face any transition and threw perfect shots every single time and struck every time, but the right lane gave him some early trouble with the early 2-8-10 in the second frame. And I think the reason for this is he was playing the right lane hooking more than the left lane, when none of the other bowlers actually did that.
It's actually deeper on that right lane, and all the other players have had that right lane a little bit tighter.
So me personally, I would just move right a tiny bit, just to compensate for that difference and play the lanes pretty similarly. But Belmonte plays pretty much the same exact line, but just slows down the ball speed just a little bit just to give the ball a bit more time to react, and the shot's a strike. If you watch back that shot though, it's not really perfect. Even though it looks flush, it's a bit high, and he was pretty lucky that the 9 pin did go down. So even though that shot was a strike, he still just a tiny bit left, just so the ball doesn't overhook for him on the next shot. But the ball is still overhooking, and he leaves the 4 pin. Knowing that he's facing some transition on this lane and it's starting to hook more and more, on his next shot on this lane, he makes an even bigger jump left, and also seems to up his ball speed maybe just a bit. Now the ball goes light, but it's still in a pretty good zone for strikes, as he does strike on this shot. At this point, he pretty much locked in the game, so for his 10th frame, he chooses to test another ball, and specifically on this right lane, he is noticing some transition that is forcing him left, which is exactly why he's testing a shinier ball, since they tend to be a bit more reliable at deeper angles or when you're moving more left. Even on a pretty good shot, he leaves a 10 pin, so there's no reason to switch from to phase 2 when he has such a good reaction with that ball. For the next game, Belmo faced Kyle Troop, and he used a pretty interesting strategy with urethane, with the pitch black, which I don't think anyone else really used so far. I guess Packy, but lefties always use urethane, so they don't really count. If you watch the match, it doesn't go too well for Kyle. Even with the slower speed, the ball just didn't want to react. And the shot that the ball did start reacting, it went really high. Just because of that, even pocket shots were leaving splits, and Kyle had to switch balls eventually. At the same time, Belmo was dealing with some problems of his own. On the right lane, he pretty much had it locked in, but on the left lane, the last game he had no transition, but this game, his ball is starting to go a bit high. So on his next attempt on this lane, he chooses to just throw the ball faster. This wasn't the right move because the ball went high again, and what he should have done is the same thing as the right lane, just move left. But he gets pretty lucky with the trip 4 here. On the next shot, he makes a pretty big move left, which I thought was good, but the ball ends up going a bit light, and he's pretty fortunate to not leave a 7-10 here. Meanwhile, Kyle just switched to reactive and is starting to strike a lot. So figuring out this left lane is very important at this point. On Belmo's next shot on the left lane, he moves a bit left and slows on the ball speed, which I think was a pretty good idea, but it still goes high again. Not sure why, but clearly this lane is transitioning pretty quickly. And Randy makes this comment.
Not far enough right, in my opinion.
At this point, I kind of agreed with him. He wasn't getting a great look moving left and slowing on the ball, and maybe moving left is getting a bit too close to where Kyle was playing and where Anderson played. And with Kyle getting 2 more strikes, at this point it's pretty close. His 2 options are moving right and throwing it a lot faster, or continuing making a big jump left again and slowing down the ball, and hoping this time it doesn't overhook on him. He chooses the path that's been working for him all day, and that's moving left and slowing it down. I was a bit worried that something like the US Open last year would happen, where he gets too afraid that it's going to go high and ends up going really light. Instead, that shot was money. The next shot was pretty close, but just not quite a strike. That forced Kyle to have to double, and unfortunately he couldn't do that. So Kyle's mistake of staying in urethane too long kinda saved Belmo here. If Kyle never used urethane or switched a lot earlier, I think he easily wins this match because Belmo was kinda lost on the left lane. Then for the next match against Jason Sterner, the lanes are re-oiled, and Belmo gets up a nice look with urethane. So he tries that for his first shot. It's pretty much perfect, but it still goes high. Meanwhile, Stunner threw 2 perfect shots, also with urethane. At this point, it's pretty easy to just stay in urethane because Stunner is also doing pretty well with urethane. But seeing what happened to Kyle last night, Jason makes one of his most important decisions of the whole tournament, and that's to get out of urethane early and get back to what worked for him yesterday, which was the phase 2. And he gets 2 pocket shots, which both look okay. After that, Jason's Stunner feels some struggles with urethane. Just like Kyle, you miss in just a little bit, it hooks way too much. You miss a bit to the outside, and it just never comes back. So that decision to just avoid urethane and stick with the phase 2 won Belmonte this match. He stays in the pocket, and even though Stunner does come back, it was just really tough to beat Belmonte's ball reaction when he had so little miss room. At the end, as usual, Belmonte tests some shinier balls. Although they look alright, I think it's just too early to use them since only one game happened on these lanes. For the next match, Belmonte faces Matthew Ogo, who's also playing a very similar line to Belmonte, but also just struggles a lot. Since Belmonte had such a great line from the last match, the main idea is just to stay in the pocket and to deal with transition. I think his only struggle this game was on the left lane. He first gets a strike on this lane, but as you can tell, it looks pretty high. And his next shot on the left lane, he goes really high, despite moving left. And Matt Ogo also does a pretty nice shot on the left lane, and it goes really high. This is where his experience from the previous day mattered a lot. He moves the same amount of boards left, and just throws it a bit slower, and then he gets a flush strike. And by that time, the match is pretty much over. If you look at Belmonte's last few shots over the phase 2, they look alright, they're hitting the pocket but just not perfect. Which is why in the last frame, he tests a shinier ball again. And the RSTX2 is giving him a pretty good look now. It allows him to go deeper in the lane, moving more left, and he seems to drive through the pins better. For the next match, he faces Anthony Simonton, and I think Simo has the best strategy for this lane. He saw that everyone playing urethane was struggling, and everyone that was playing the same line as Belmo, moving more left, was also struggling. So he plays right in between them. He's playing pretty straight with a reactive ball. At the same time, Belmo is moving deeper with the X2. They're both hitting pocket pretty reliably, so at this point it's kind of a carry contest. On the right lane, Belmonte is throwing some pretty good shots, but they're leaving quite a few 10 pins. To adjust, I think he made a pretty interesting move. He actually moves a bit right, and throws the ball a bit faster, hoping that that combination would help carry the 10. Even though he doesn't strike here, I do like the idea a lot. There's nothing more frustrating than leaving 10 pins on great shots. So it's important to still adjust on a good shot to make a good shot a better shot. After both of them hit pocket for pretty much every shot, this split by Simo cost him the match. Again, Belmonte's going to try a different ball here, this time the Fate, which I believe is a symmetric Pearl ball, but the ball reaction wasn't that great, and with only one match left, it was probably safest to just stick with the X2 because it already works so well. The final match is with EJ Tackett, who's definitely a front runner for Player of the Year. Even though he's missing spares early, his ball reaction for strikes looks really good, so this is definitely no joke. Early on, we see some themes from the previous matches. The right lane he's leaving 10 pins, and the left lane is starting to transition, and it's going a bit high. For the right lane adjustment, he slows down his ball speed just a tiny bit, and pretty much stays at the exact same spot. That was enough to carry the 10 pin. On the left lane, he moves a bit left, and I think he misses right here. But since this lane is starting to hook a lot, it still comes back from that area and strikes. Knowing that he missed right and it still hooked so much, he makes a bigger move left on his next shot, and that's money. And just like that, it's over. Huge congrats to EJ Tackett. He's having a great year and will come back. But of course, this is a historic run by Belmo and a very well-deserved win. From these matches, I had 2 main takeaways. First off, one game only has 10 frames, so you have to adjust quickly. Kyle Troop spent too much time with urethane, which ended up causing him the match. However, with Belmonte, one bad shot on urethane and he switched immediately to reactive. He also made quick and decisive adjustments from the transition. Whenever his ball went high, he immediately went around 4 left, slowed down the ball speed just a little bit, and that seemed to do the trick. My other takeaway is Belmonte's mental strength. Even being 58th place at the first round, he still had the mentality that he can push to first. And in a lot of these matches, he was behind by quite a bit. For example, against Stunner, he started with a split with urethane, while Stunner had 2 great strikes with urethane. Instead of getting tilted or staying in urethane because he thought it looked good with Stunner, he made the logical long-term decision to go back to the phase 2 and keep making good shots to keep him in the game. So, thanks for watching and hopefully you enjoyed.